And we are now live.
Thank you for that. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Rural Initiatives Planning Advisory Committee meeting for January the 5th, 2022. It's 9 a.m. and I will call the meeting to order. First step is the approval of the agenda. Everyone has had opportunity to peruse the agenda. Any additions or deletions?
I move the approval.
Thank you, Sally. Seconder?
I'll second.
Thank you, Dominique. So a move by Councillor Martin, seconded by Councillor Giguère, that the agenda be approved as presented. All in favor? Who's going to call the?
I can, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
Warden French,
Yes.
Councillor Giguère,
Yes.
Councillor Martin,
Yes.
Councillor Ketchabah.
Yes,
4-0, the motion is carried.
thank you. Moving on with the minutes. Has everyone had opportunity to review the minutes of the last meeting? And if there are no errors, I would entertain a motion to adopt the minutes.
I'll move.
Thank you, Councillor Giguère.
I'll second.
Thank you, Councillor Martin. Moved by Councillor Giguère, second by Councillor Martin. Be resolved that the minutes of the previous meeting be adopted. All in favor?
Warden French,
Yes.
Councillor Giguère,
Yes.
Councillor Martin,
Yes.
Councillor Ketchabah.
Yes.
4-0, the motion is carried.
Thank you. At this point, I would remind everyone of disclosure of pecuniary interest and the general nature thereof. None noted. We'll move on with the 2022 Community Grant Program requests. Who's taking the lead on that one? Is that you, Julie? Good morning and thank you.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Happy New Year. So we'll just skip ahead to the agenda slide here. Today, I hope to take you through a quick overview of the community grant program itself and how we redesigned it. We'll walk you through the number of applications received and the workflow and process associated with the committee's grant program. We'll also review recommended allocations and discuss next steps. So just to quickly recap, this committee is responsible for considering grant requests made to council through the community grant program. And the committee provides recommendations to county council as to which organizations should receive funding through this program. The community grant program was revised in 2020 and is divided into two overarching streams. One is community services and the other is festivals and events. And these streams are further divided into cultivate for programs that are already in place and they're seeking additional funds, or seed programs, those that are new programs or festivals and events. The application period for the 2022 intake opened on September 1st, 2021 and closed on November the 10th. This committee worked very diligently to redesign the community grant program to ensure that the program aligned with council's strategic plan, to ensure that applicants are treated fairly and consistently, and to enhance transparency and accountability. And that included the redevelopment of evaluation tools to reduce subjectivity and bias. So a key step in this process is effectively allocating funds. And this requires that the committee objectively review the applications and work collaboratively to avoid bias while making transparent and fair recommendations to council about which organizations receive funding. We have explicitly noted in our application packages that funding is not guaranteed for anyone who submits an application, even if they satisfy all of the eligible criteria. So we'll skip ahead to the next slide. This year, we received a total of 19 applications for the 2022 intake period, and one application did not meet the eligibility requirements. The proposed budget allocation for grants is $69,498, and that equates to $3.51 per household, and that is assigned by council policy. The total eligible funding requests for 2022 is 109,253. So the program itself is oversubscribed by 1.57 times, and that's a great thing because that indicates that interest in this program is great. So you'll see here a breakdown of the number of applications received for each of the streams. So community services, the Cultivate stream received 6 applications with a total funding request of $34,562. Community services seed or new programs received 1 application with a funding request of $3,000. For festivals and events, specifically the Cultivate program, we received 11 applications with a total funding request of $71,691. For seed events, we received 1 application with a funding request of $5,000, and this is not included in the total as the application was deemed ineligible. We didn't receive any signage grant applications. So in total, 19 applications, $109,253. So in terms of process, we initially screen applicants for eligibility, and that's a pass or a fail. Committee members reviewed applications individually using approved scoring matrices to ensure impartiality, and that avoids groupthink. Staff compiled the scores, coming up with average total scores for each of the applications. And we used a weighting factor calculation to come up with the recommended allocations. And so we're seeking consensus at today's meeting. So the recommended allocations, you'll see we have $69,498 to dole out, and we've received $109,253 in submissions. So we are proposing the budget on the second chart. Here you'll see that we propose that community services seed grants have a proposed budget of $1,908. Community services Cultivate, a proposed budget of $21,986. Festivals and events Cultivate, we're proposing $45,604 for a total that reconciles with council's policy, which is $69,498. So this is the first kind of critical impasse that we have to agree upon, or the committee members have to agree upon, which is the proposed budget for each of these streams appropriate? I think you're muted, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Then that's a question for the committee to struggle with, I assume. So what do committee members think? Are you satisfied with the proposed budget allocations?
I'm satisfied with the allocations as far as the total amounts, which is all we've looked at so far. But I do have a question on the specifics when we get to that.
Okay, thank you for that. Dominique?
Yeah, I would agree. I don't think there would be a rationale or justification to change those and change the overall budget.
Okay. And Madam Warden, what are you thinking?
I agree with Councillor Chiguer. I think that it looks good.
Okay, there you go. Does that do it for you, Julie?
Great, yes. So the next slide includes the community services cultivate applications. You'll see the first column reflects the total average score that combines the scores that were submitted by committee members. The next column is the community services ask for the grants. We used a weighting factor, which was previously approved by the committee. And you'll see that the recommended allocation is in the final column.
Okay. So picking up from there, what do committee members think about the allocations?
I have a concern, and I've had it every year, and we've talked about it every year, and that is something like 4-H. I don't like putting them through this because I think they need the $2,000, and it really does bother me that we have to go through and evaluate them. And the same with the plowmans. The $250 is so minimal that I have a hard time with this. And I know last year we went through this and we changed it as well. I know the plowmans is on the next one. The one I'm missing completely is the seniors in the park picnic. I don't see it on either chart. And it was an application that we valued. So I didn't know what it's called, if it's called something different.
Thank you for that. I'm scanning down and
Not there.
Is that the VON, Catherine?
there were,
No, it's not VON because it wasn't $7,000 request.
There were 3 that had VON associated. One was a visitation program, one was the elder abuse, and then the third was the picnic in the park. And I believe they asked for 2,000.
I thought it was closer to 3.
Yeah, it was 3 something this year. Because it was
There's
up.
an
It's always-
Middlesex VON under festivals and events. Is that the one?
Yeah, the day in the park is under festivals.
Right. And that was a $2,500 request.
So it wouldn't be on this slide.
Oh, it's on the next slide. That's why I just didn't know where it was or what it was, because we've called it, seniors in the park in the past, so.
Right.
And I'm
Okay.
intrigued even that it's called Elgin Middlesex VON, because it isn't just, they assist, but they don't sponsor it in my understanding.
Right. Okay, going back then with this slide dealing with 4-H, what are committee members thinking? I'll throw my 2 thoughts out there, or 2 cents. Essentially, when I looked at their program from last year, they didn't. I think they didn't use the entire grant that we gave them. So that's why I thought there was some leeway there that perhaps they could fall in and be treated consistently with the other applicants. That was my thoughts.
I'm guessing they didn't use it because of COVID, but then that could apply this year as well.
Yeah. Well, they were the request last year was so that they could set up and do things virtually, if I understand correctly. But overall, what's the committee thinking? Like I know last year had thought that, as you said, Sally, that BO or the seniors in the park, the 4-H and the plowmans were minimal asks, and so we just granted their full ask.
Yeah, I would be in favor of committing fully to the formula. Because if we start being granular, then I would have a lot to say about every single application. And, for example, when it comes to 4-H, it's absolutely a valuable event and organization. We have tried to put in our criteria to say that there has to be some sort of renewal and some aspect of innovation, which I think they demonstrated last year with their having to adjust to COVID and moving different activities online. I didn't see really, everything appears to be very much status quo. So if we start differentiating for whatever reasons, then that becomes, then I think it throws everything under question. So I would like in this year that we invested a fair amount of time in developing the formula and the criteria. And all organizations by now have had a chance to become more familiar with, what we're looking for and what we want to support. So I would be in favor of applying the formula as is and not having different treatments based because, let's say, some ask is lower than another.
Okay, thank you for those comments. Mary, Donna, do you have anything to offer on this? Mary?
I have a comment, and maybe I'm not looking at this clearly, being new on the committee, but when I look now, of course, the screen we're looking at now is fine, the average total score. So that tells me that all these particular entities, they work very hard on their applications. But as we go through the charts, we're going to notice that a lot of people's scores are very low, like a lot of the organizations. And so I have to say that that's alarming to me because if they didn't put the work in to fulfill their applications out correctly and giving us as much information as we need, I have a problem with that. So I kind of have to say I agree with Councillor Jaguar that maybe we need to be cautious and not be, singling out one group saying that they should get the whole amount or whatever. But that's just my thoughts.
I agree
Ed?
with, oops, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Sorry,
Sally.
Ed. The one thing I am concerned about with this is we use this scoring matrix, and I know I've mentioned it before, but to me, if a group doesn't get what they want, like let's say just 4-H, just for an example, they're going to get, a certain percentage of what they asked for. Why wouldn't they next year just ask for double what they asked for this year, so that then they can guarantee they'll get what they really want or what they really need? And I'm just using them. I mean, anybody could do that. Because if they score, 4-H scored 82, so they scored fairly high. So they would get, if they requested 3,500 next year, they'd get their 2,000, which they wanted. So to me, it almost encourages, our scoring matrix encourages people to be deceptive, and that does concern me.
Noted. How do you address that though? Yeah, Julie.
Just a comment through you, Mr. Chair, to committee members. We do require that all applicants submit a detailed budget. And so it is up to the committee members to the best of your abilities, evaluate the budgets and assess whether, applicants are asking for a fair amount for their proposal. And it is at the committee's discretion to ask additional questions about budget submissions. So I would suggest that the committee has a role in reducing risk associated with inflated asks in future years. Mm-hmm. As well, I think in the absence of any sort of weighting factor or a means by which to apply an average as well as, against an ask and recommended allocation, then we would reintroduce a lot of bias into the process. And so I think that the committee worked very diligently on coming up with criteria, guidelines, an application process that is fair. We've been transparent with the applicants. We request a lot of information from the applicants. And if the committee is thorough in their due diligence in reviewing the applications and conducting the scoring, then the process may never be perfect, but we get pretty close to having a transparent and accountable process by the consistent application of the weighting factor and all of the criteria that the committee's put in place. So a long explanation, Mr. Chairman, but.
Yeah, no, thank you for that, Julie. I would also add to that there's an equitable factor in there as well. We're treating all the applicants equally. Dominique?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I wanted to add that I have more faith, I guess, in our relationship with these organizations. They're in our backyard. We know the individuals, and if anyone tried to manipulate the formula in their application, I think we would be able to tell, and I think they would also know that would affect the trust and the relationship. So I have faith in just the way this is open and transparent, that this is not a behavior that I personally think we have to be concerned about.
Okay, thank you. Any more comments? Donna, I realize this is the first time through for you. What do you think?
I think all the comments that have been made are very valid, that if everybody is treated equitably and they know the governance rules up front, then I think this is how it should be treated. My experience going through marking them was pretty, I enjoyed doing that. And it did show me a lot of differences. And so I have a couple of comments at the end about that.
Okay, thank you for that.
The only thing, Ed.
Yep.
Last year we did change those three. And we didn't follow the equity thing. So those three organizations may be surprised this year because they will be following it. That's all.
I appreciate that. Yeah. Okay, are we at the spot where we wish to make a, or can move on from here, or? I'm sensing from, the majority of the committee members that they're satisfied with the allocations. Okay, let's move on then with the community services seed.
Sorry, we'll just go back to where we were, Carolyn, if you don't mind. So at the bottom here, you'll see we received one application for $3,000, and the recommended allocation applying the formula is $1,908. So we're seeking committee's consent to award the VON Elder Abuse Service $1,908, or provide that recommendation to County Council.
Yes, thank you for that. Any concerns with that from committee members? Again, it's using the formula factor to get there. Okay, I think we can move on.
Great, so we're skipping ahead to recommended allocations, festivals and events, cultivate. I know. I over-prepared with different scenarios, so we're skipping ahead past some slides. Thanks, Carolyn. So you'll see here, again, total average score, the asks, weighting factor, and the list of recommended allocations for these festivals and events, with a grand total of funds available, $45,604, and a total ask of $71,691. You'll note at the bottom that there was one seed application for the Lioness Beer and Wine event, but it did not meet the eligibility criteria. So with that, I'd be pleased to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you for that. Does anyone have any questions for staff on this particular chart?
Yeah, I still, Ed, I'm really glad that we didn't allow the wine and beer and wine thing, because to me, when we didn't allow the the Optimist, we said that service clubs, we weren't going to allow service clubs, so I was surprised we even got it. I did not evaluate it. I just said, as far as I was concerned, it didn't meet it, so I'm glad that we agree on that.
Mhm.
I do think the plowman's, I don't know, $250 and you get them 150. I mean, they're not asking for much. It still bothers me.
Yeah.
I'm willing to go along with the group. That's fine, but and I know they don't get many at their events anymore.
No, particularly during this environment.
I do have to note Plowman's, I did attend their events this year. Probably because it was on one of our properties, but
Mhm.
they did a great job with working with COVID, with all of the restrictions to it, and they complied with all the public health and the feedback from the plowmen, and actually the participants number was very good. It was higher than almost every other county this year.
Good to know. Good to hear.
Yeah, and they ask so little of us.
Yes.
But if I may, I think this is the group also who use the majority, if not all, of our funding for prizes, which personally, I had a sort of philosophical concern about that.
Mm.
So that's why then if we start differentiating, then I will have criticism or a comment about how funds are being used. So either we go deep or we go we go with equity.
Yeah. It would, from my perspective, Dominique, I would say that if I was reviewing an application and I wasn't entirely comfortable with the intended use of the funds, I tended to score it lower. So it was captured within, hopefully the overall weighting factor. So I think there's opportunity within the current mechanism to try to recognize that. And I agree with you. If we stray away from that formula, then we start introducing inequity into the process. And I realize it's only a small ask. I get that. But if we start straying and treating others differently, then does that inject chaos into a system which we're trying to at least achieve a little order? We know that the asks by far outweigh the available resources. And to be fair, I'm not sure how else to go about it. So I'm open to ideas if anybody has an idea.
No,
I guess it goes, yeah.
No, I was just basically probably just repeating what you said, that I think the fairness is there. You look, their score is fairly low,
Yeah.
relatively speaking, and I think that speaks to the need that they're able to express. So I think I personally have parked aside the relativity of the ask. So to me, it's how it's being used, what's the event about, how much do they need the funds in order to run the event? And I think it's reflected in the score. So as I said earlier, the formula works as far as I'm concerned.
Yes. Mary?
Well, just adding to that, so the point is that if they do need more money, or they feel that they do, they're gonna have to put a little extra work into their application so that they'll get that higher score. That, I think that's what I was trying to bring up before, because a lot of the scores are lower. So, if they were to put more time and effort into their applications, and not just plowman's, I'm talking about all the applications, certainly they would reap the benefit of working harder on those applications. And I guess we have to keep in mind that we're the stewards of the taxpayers' money,
Mhm.
and it's up to us as a group to make recommendations to council, that are reasonable. And I'll be honest with you, I think this is a really good format, and so I would like to thank the committee, since this is the first time I've seen how you actually do it. and had that discussion. I do see it at council, but it's a little bit different. You know, you don't get all the ins and outs, but I think it's a great way of doing it. So I'm in favor of the way that it's being done, and I agree with Councillor Jiguer. I think we've got to stay the course. And if people want to, you know, put that extra work into their applications, they'll definitely reap the rewards for it.
Okay, thank you for those comments. Are we ready to move on from this slide? I think so.
Great. So you'll see now that the committee has provided a list of recommended grant allocations, that we will be skipping ahead to the item in red here on the continuum, which is the chairman's report to council on January 11th, which is next Tuesday. So we will be seeking council's consent to assign the grants as recommended by the Rural Initiatives Committee. So thank you everyone for your great work in evaluating the applications received. I think we have a great list of community events and community services that Elgin County will be supporting in 2022, subject to council's approval. And with that, I'd be pleased to answer any questions, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Any questions for staff? Donna, I suppose this would be a time you had some concerns or something you wanted to express.
Yes, thank you, Ed. I just wanted to know, I did score that one ineligible application, but I did score it low that it wouldn't have passed the threshold anyway. But I'm wondering why it would have been sent to us to even do that. So if it's deemed ineligible.
That's a good question. Yes, Julie.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Through you to Donna. That is our mistake. Because in the workflow process, really, staff should be catching those that are ineligible and perhaps flagging them as ineligible for the committee's continued review or assessment. So in future, we'll make sure that we don't forward that on without at least a notation indicating that we've done our preliminary assessment and have some concerns about eligibility. So our apologies.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, that was one thing that Ed, there was one thing I asked of staff when I got this, and I was corresponding back and forth with trying to get my evaluations in. And they said that it was, the decision was up to us, not up to them to decide if it was eligible or not. That was what they told me. So just so you're aware, I thought it was, we shouldn't even have bothered looking at it, and that's why I didn't.
Yeah, in like vein, as Donna had indicated, I did score it as well, but because of the nature of the applicant and whatever else, meaning it's a for-profit, well, a fundraising organization looking to raise funds, I thought, and I scored it low based on that. So it did, you know, weeded it out anyway, but it was an application we didn't have to do or shouldn't have had to do. But I agree. Yeah, Donna.
While I was reading them, there were a number that I thought were quite weak in some of their aspects. And I'm wondering, do we provide feedback to the organizations regarding that?
Well, my first blush would simply be that if we are contacted by these organizations wondering why their allocation is so low, well, it's reflective on the strength of the application. That's one way to deal with it. But is it the committee's wish to put additional work on staff to send feedback out to these organizations at this point? It's just a question, because you're right. Some of the organizations didn't include proper financials as far as I was concerned. So, you know, to me, that scored them relatively low in that particular category, which resulted in an overall score lower. And if they were poor enough, they wouldn't have even met the threshold to be considered. That's my thoughts. What's the rest of the committee thinking?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I have the same question around how do we provide feedback and is it our role? Is it, do we redirect them to economic development, for example, in terms of, it's almost like as a business, how do you write proposals? How do you provide proper financials? And to me, that brought also the question of eligibility. For example, providing financial information is actually a checkbox, as you know, you must in order to. So that, but because we hadn't dealt with that before, I used the same rationale, I think, as you, Mr. Chair, in terms of just scoring very low, as far as 0 in terms of that column, because there was no financial information provided. But then I wondered, should they even be eligible? If the application requests a key piece of information, should staff then, should there be like a triage process where perhaps they're given a second chance to say, we've done an initial review, you're missing A, B, and C. So either you provide it or you won't be considered. Because I think that's, if there's anything like right now, I think we need to stay the course, but if there's anything that I would like to discuss further for future considerations is how we deal with the budget piece, all the way from not providing any information to a number of festivals or services who are running surpluses, like significant surpluses. So why are we funding them? So that's more of a philosophical question that I would like to go back to at some point. Or, as I mentioned at the last meeting, we have the opportunity to do a 180 from that and not look at financials and just say we agree with the mandate. We want to support you. We're just going to divide the pie, not based on your needs, but based on demand. And since we can't make a decision based on your needs, we won't even look at the financial piece at all. So that's another alternative, and perhaps not for today, but maybe a discussion for later. So that's my overall takeaway from this year.
Okay, thank you for that. Anything else?
Just one comment. I think some of the ones that are a bit weak are ones that have applied and expected the grant for years and years and years. And that, I think they aren't putting the effort in sometimes. But then we also have to realize that a lot of these are just strictly volunteer organizations, and it takes a long time to fill in all this information and to get everything in order. And I know they need to be accountable for the money that they get, and that's very important. But we have to realize too that they're volunteers, they're not paid in any way, most of them, and so it you know, it's a fairly onerous task for them.
Okay, appreciate those comments as well. Sounds like we've got some discussion points for a future meeting. If there are no other comments, we do have a motion here, and I'll read it and then see if there's anyone interested in moving and seconding. It's that resolved that the December 21st, 2021 report entitled 2022 Community Grant Program Request submitted by the Chief Administrative Officer be received and filed for information. And that the Rural Initiatives and Planning Advisory Committee approve the 2022 Community Grant Program funding allocations as presented by the Chief Administrative Officer, and that the Rural Initiatives and Planning Advisory Committee present the Community Grant Program recommendations to Council for consideration on January 11th, 2022. Anyone interested in moving that? Councillor Giguère? Anyone interested in seconding that? Warden Martin, or excuse me, Warden French. I gave you a promotion there, Sally.
Yeah, right.
All in favor?
Warden French,
Yes.
Councillor Giguère,
Yes.
Councillor Martin,
Yes.
Counselor Ketchabah.
Yes.
4-0, the motion is carried.
Okay, moving on then with item number 6 on my agenda, which is correspondence, and I see there is none. Item 7 is new business, unless the committee has any. I see there is none. The date of the next meeting will be at the call of the chair. Is that sufficient for the committee members? Okay, perfect. Then we did very well. I would look for an adjournment motion.
I'll move adjournment.
Okay, so Councillor Martin will move, seconded by Councillor Jiguer, that the meeting be adjourned at 9:42 a.m. All in favor?
Warden French.
Yes.
Counselor Jiguer.
Yes.
Counselor Martin.
Yes.
Counselor Ketchabah.
Yes.
4-0, the motion is carried.
Well, thank you very much, everyone. Again, that was a lot quicker than anticipated. And look at all the free time we've given staff now.